an Excelsior Studios original production. Throughout this podcast, sensitive subjects such as sexual assaults, eating disorders, and suicidal thoughts will be mentioned. Listen with care. And throughout this podcast, sometimes I will use AI voices to bring real-life social media posts and messages to life. While the voices you are hearing are fake, the words they are reading are 100% real, and I will be sure to point them out to you so you don't get confused.
And I knew when she got out of that jail, she was going to be more self-righteous and indignant than ever before. I knew that paying restitution, being Restitution Meg, was going to be the new latest persona that she took on. It was going to become what all of her social media posts were about. And anyone who called her out or tried to push back on how sincere she was going to get the most indignant response, and that she was just going to be worse as a result of being arrested, not get any better.
So, by now, you know that Megan was arrested for her rental fraud scheme in April of 2023. She turned herself in, she stopped by Jack's Donuts on the way before for a quick donut, and was released on bond within a day or so. I thought, along with a lot of others, that she'd probably get out of jail and go silent on social media. Maybe a post here and there, maybe she'd block a few trolls. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Today, we're going to get into how Megan got significantly worse since her arrest for the rental fraud, both with her interactions on social media as well as her schemes. But before we get into that, I want to remind you where the community was at the time of her arrest. You know, the various groups of people Megan had stumbled across over the years. Upon Megan's arrest, we all found out about each other, and we were not a likely crowd to be interacting on a day-to-day basis. There was the Noblesville chatter community who had known each other online and in person for years and had a certain decorum about how they interacted with one another. And the people who entered their world came from all walks of life and all across the country and even the world. There were the Young Republicans crowd of Indiana and beyond. Just think about how buttoned up and nerdy the type of person is who gets involved with politics from a young age. We're not all that nerdy, but we're not that far off either, and I can speak for us because I'm one of them. Picture us coming together with the other communities Megan had been interacting with. Sure, the Young Republicans and the evangelical church crowd don't seem like an unlikely pairing. But the communities of the mental health advocates with pronouns in their bios? That seems less likely. And think about what the advocates thought about the Young Republicans, generally speaking. Again, I'm not passing judgment on any of this. I'm just trying to point out that some of us did not seem like a likely pairing. And then think about what we knew of Megan. All of the things you've heard thus far in this podcast, certain people knew certain things about her, but nobody knew the full story. Most of us were under the impression that Megan was a weird social media poster. She seemed to like attention, and she got into some public drama on social media from time to time. We saw her present herself as an advocate, a political consultant, and a teacher. And while most of us knew that there was something off about her, there were also things that we couldn't make sense of, but we could interpret as her having some form of success. She had a nice townhouse in the upscale Indianapolis suburb of Fishers. She drove multiple Teslas. No one quite knew what was real and what was fake about her. In this episode, we will get into how this community that came together unexpectedly began to learn about the extent of Megan's past transgressions, Megan's bizarre behavior post-arrest, and the surprising discoveries the community found about how Megan was affording and maintaining a lot of these luxuries she liked to brag about online. I'm Amanda, and this is Don't Waste This Effing Podcast, the story of Megan Stoner. You know the drill by now. Don't Waste This Podcast is a completely independent podcast. If you appreciate the podcast and would like to sponsor it, because we're not taking advertisers, There's a course to teach you how to make your own podcast like this one, linked in the description below. I would also greatly appreciate 5 stars on all of the platforms. We have hundreds of subscribers on Apple and Spotify, but only 45 reviews. Please take the time to mark 5 stars and share with your friends. And one more thing. Recording this episode shocked me. If it feels like it's all over the place, it's kind of because it is. Going back and recording this episode, realizing how much happened last summer has been shocking to me. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back through my notes and go back through the Facebook page and the Twitter accounts, and I have found stuff I completely forgot about. And I was pretty heavily involved in the Megan Stoner saga last summer. Everything in this episode happened from May of 2023 to around August of 2023, okay? And I'm leaving things out. We lived a lifetime last summer. So if this feels very sporadic or like a ton's going on, I'm sorry. That's the nature of Megan, and I think you understand that by now. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Megan got out of jail on April 28, 2023, after turning herself in and posting bail, which was set at $25,000. Initially, she was pretty quiet upon her release. At the same time, a growing community of her former victims had begun discussing her online, in Twitter Spaces and on Facebook groups. And there was chatter that she was trying to get into some of those groups using fake accounts or trying to join and listen to the Twitter Spaces. Megan eventually broke her silence on social media with a cryptic Instagram post.
Have I been sitting in the same spot for 3 hours reading? Yes. Do I care? Nope. It's been weeks and weeks of being on the go. It feels so good to be sitting and soaking in my Saturday.
That's the AI voice of Megan. While that post seemed vague and cryptic, her next post to Twitter was a little less cryptic.
After my worst week on planet Earth, I wanted to break my silence. I've been through the worst part of life this last week, but in the moment of the worst parts, I found my true tribe. I found the people who truly care for me and will literally drop what they're doing to help me. Maybe it's literally talking to me on the phone until I fall asleep, or taking the dogs out for me on a moment's notice. As painful as this last week has been, I've sure learned a lot. I've learned that those we think will be there for us often aren't. And those we least expect step up and show out, you know who you are. And for this, I'm forever grateful.
That's the AI voice of Megan again. And this is the post that opened the floodgate. Pretty soon, Megan was openly discussing her haters and the groups discussing her online, but of course, making herself out to be a victim. You've heard things like this from her before.
Knowing there's a group on Facebook that is designed to cyberbully me. It's water off my back at this point. It doesn't bother me. I'm enjoying my chocolate cake just the same. It feels weird having 1,500 people picking apart my life, but I'm still standing and eating chocolate cake. Enjoy trying to tear me down because it's not working.
Again, that's AI. Eventually, her posts turn into all-out begging. She was basically digitally panhandling with a blue check-marked Twitter account, which you probably know you have to pay for.
I'm truly going through one of the worst growing spurts in my life. Can anyone help me financially relocate? I'm in pure misery and not sure how to make it. Is there anyone that can walk this path with me? I was told this was worth it to take my life. I'm struggling. It is not a crime to send someone that is waiting out the legal process on a motion to quash a warrant money for food and shelter. I'm tired of hearing this. My lawyer has spoken on this. I need help for food and shelter. If anyone can help me, at Cupcake 2016 is my Venmo.
Those posts are read with AI as well. Megan was also going back and forth with accounts she had been interacting with for years. Greg's Mustache, Justin, Alex. All the while, the Facebook group and Twitter Spaces dedicated to Megan's schemes were exploding with stories about her antics over the years, many of which you've heard thus far in this podcast, but the growing community was hearing for the first time. As the stories poured out, so did growing discourse about what the purpose of these online communities would be. Were they to spread awareness? Were memes making fun of Meghan allowed? Was this community supposed to catch Meghan?
One day, I saw a post on one of the chatter groups regarding how Victoria was left homeless because of the scam. Stoner is my daughter's age for starters. When I started to dig into how many people were scammed because of her, the group was born.
That's AI reading a statement from Vero, the founder of the Facebook group, the Meghan Stoner Chronicles. She also ran a Twitter page dedicated to Meghan's antics, and other Twitter accounts dedicated to exposing Meghan popped up as well, with clever names such as Indiana Delvey. This was just a few months after the Anna Delvey movie had gotten big on Netflix. And Meghan was loving the attention, so much so that she requested Zoom calls with community members Khloe and Justin. You've heard from both of them on this podcast. And I know you've heard a lot of insane things already in this series, but I need to highlight how absurd this is for a minute. Meghan was constantly complaining about a group of people who were so-called cyberbullying her one minute, then requesting to have Zoom calls to share her story with some of the top voices talking about her wrongdoings online the next minute. I mean, we know Meghan loves an interview, but this is another level. Also, just as an aside, Khloe and Justin are not journalists. They're just people familiar with Meghan's story.
I know. I kind of thought the same thing, that it was Susan Brooks. I'm like, well, I know she's a Susan Brooks fan, so there's something in common. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I am here. I've had a very, I don't know, up and down day. So I am glad to answer any questions that you have. If I can't answer something, I will let you know.
Okay. Well, I mean, the first thing I wanted to say is, like, obviously, when you first reached out, I was a little, hesitant to engage. But, I kind of remember the story of, like, how, John Adams, defended the Boston Massacre people. And I just kind of thought, that's one of my heroes. And I think, everybody's entitled to defend themselves and, at least tell their side. And so, you reached out to me. And so, you said you didn't want this to be a gotcha conversation. And so I think the best way I can prove that to you, that's not my intention here, is to just let you talk first and tell me what you want me to know. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm trying to think where to start. I think thinking objectively, I think the memes are too much. I think if you guys want to attack me, that's fine. I think using facts would be better.
Okay.
I think going off the police report. I think the memes are really lame. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've giggled at a couple. I'm not going to lie. But I think they're really lame. I think if that's all you guys have, I really think it's a lame argument. That's all.
The interview with Justin went first, and he went decently light on her. Then she requested a Zoom with Khloe, where Khloe did not go so light on her.
Argument. Hi, Khloe. So what's the purpose of you wanting to chit-chat?
I mean, we don't have to, obviously. I understand that I've done some things wrong in the past, and I'm trying to correct those moving forward. And I just wanted to reach out because I know you're one of the people that have been attacking me, right or wrong. And
I wouldn't call it attacking. I would call it sharing facts.
okay, if that's okay.
I mean, what if I said that's not truthful? I guess maybe we can start there.
I mean, Khloe, I'm not going to sit and go through every little thing. If you want to ask me questions, I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm not going to entertain questions on the legal front.
A few interesting tidbits from these calls. Meghan admitted to lying about some pretty major things in these calls. She admitted to forging campaign data for Indiana campaigns to Khloe. She also admitted that she knew she would never be hired to work in Indiana politics, despite constantly applying for Indiana political jobs. She admitted to not being a political consultant. And most notably, she admitted that she lied about the sexual assault allegations towards former Speaker of the Indiana House, Brian Bosma.
Justin and I are working on putting a public call out and trying to figure out who all was wronged. And if they've been wronged, I'm happy to try to make that right. And I started that tonight with another victim. And it's good.
She also admitted that there were more victims of the rental fraud scam. And this comes right after that. This is a real-time lie Megan seemingly came up with on the spot. Justin and Chloe both recorded their interviews. Nowhere in the interview with Justin did he indicate a plan to help her compile a list of her victims and to make amends. But I have to admit, when I first heard Megan say this on the call with Chloe, I felt gaslit for a split second. I opened up my text to berate Justin for offering to help Megan, even though I had already heard his call with her and knew this wasn't true. This is how good at lying Megan is. There was a lot of debate in the online communities about whether or not it was a good idea to be speaking with Megan. This started a semi-rift in the community that continued throughout the summer. There was always a debate about whether or not the community should be interacting with Megan, but some people did anyways. One of the most notable early examples would be that community members would call 911 for safety checks on Megan because she was making suicide threats online on her Twitter.
Have a tribe that gets you, that supports you, that believes in you so much that they call you up to your next level because they see that potential in you. Really grateful for Team Meg.
What's weird is that one moment she'd post like that, which was read by AI, but the next minute her post would sound like this.
I'm hurting so deeply tonight. I wish I saw another way out than death.
She posted dozens of times that she was contemplating suicide, often late at night, and a lot of the time it was accompanied by asking for money. Sometimes she would also implicate community members in these tweets, and the tweets would spark a debate about whether or not community members should call in a wellness check on her. Alex specifically had to put up with a lot of Megan drama during and after her wedding, which is supposed to be one of the best days of her life.
I literally had someone call me about something Megan had said that day while I was getting my hair and makeup done for my wedding. And I also had someone reach out while I was on my honeymoon, knowing I was on my honeymoon, asking if I would call and make a wellness check for Megan because they were worried about her. And Megan also that very same day posted on X that if she were to, complete suicide, that it would have been my fault. And, it didn't ruin my trip by any means, but it certainly wasn't memory I was really going for on my honeymoon. But it all came back to sort of the same place. I mean, Megan wanted to hurt people.
So, a few things here. First, I completely understand that Megan was going through a terrible, terrible part of her life, and I completely understand having thoughts that are very scary. If you are having thoughts like this, please, if you are in the United States, call 988 to talk to somebody that can help you. Second, though, it is awful to publicly call out and blame others for these suicidal thoughts and attempts, particularly people that Megan had only interacted with online sparingly. And speaking of seeking help, Megan was very openly talking about #Team Meg. But when these wellness checks were called on her, she immediately assumed that they were done maliciously and not from the so-called community that she had curated that was looking out for her. Why would she immediately assume it's being done maliciously if she has people looking out for her? It's kind of another example of the weird symbiotic relationship Megan had with the online community of people that she had wronged. Another notable thing about Megan's call with Chloe, she invited Chloe to her upcoming trial dates because she had multiple upcoming trials set for the summer of 2023 that had nothing to do with the rental scam. The first was for her OWI case, and the second was for her eviction from her Fishers townhouse for non-payment. OWI is Indiana's term for driving under the influence, but interestingly, Megan blew zeros when she was pulled over around 3 a.m. on her birthday and charged with an OWI. Megan says she had cough syrup in her front seat, and that's why she was charged. Nobody could make sense of this. I had someone tell me that their interpretation of the charge was that she was driving erratically and pulled over, and the police officer that apprehended her thought there must be something going on due to how erratically she was driving. You've heard before on this podcast that this was a habit of Megan's. Megan made a plea on this charge and subsequently had her license revoked for a period of time as a part of her sentence. However, Megan did not stop driving. The online community became flooded with sightings of Megan driving around Indianapolis. How could somebody miss her white Tesla with Utah plates? She also got 2 violations for speeding and driving with a suspended license, and she was accused of driving for Lyft after her license was revoked due to her OWI case. Apparently, Megan was able to fraudulently sign up for Lyft under her deceased father Dennis's name and under her former roommate Abby's name. Each time people found this out, oftentimes because she was their Lyft driver, they reported her to Lyft, but she'd pop back up driving again. So this became a focus for the group because people were scared about her erratic driving. Also, with how indignant Megan's behavior was on social media, people were annoyed that she continued to act like she was above the law, not following her sentencing for the OWI case. Then came Megan's eviction case. Megan was evicted for non-payment from the townhouse she had been renting in Fishers. One of the Facebook group members attended her trial for this and heard Megan claim to be a single mother to the judge, asking not to be evicted. So she perjured herself. However, the judge granted the landlord the eviction, which gave Megan a week to move out in mid-June of 2023. This is where things start to get really bad with Megan's begging on social media.
It really upsets me that no one on Twitter cares that I've been without a place to call my own for almost a month now. I've been in between motels and sleeping at friends' houses. Here's my eviction order from the court. Yeah, I made some bad decisions in my past. I'm trying to clean it up. No one wants to help me. I'm really ashamed that no one will step up and help me. I need the help more than ever, please.
The begging only got worse as the summer went on, especially after Megan got in trouble for the next crime she committed while out on bail. She scammed a moving company. Megan hired a moving company to help her move her stuff out of her townhouse in Fishers after the eviction, and her haters, aka the online community, kept their eye on her leading up to that day. I will say this about the community. I don't envy Megan for what she was going through during all of this, with the social media mob and such. However, none of this would have happened had she not continued scamming people, as well as not responded to these people on social media. Her haters saw that the sheriff was waiting on the day she was to be removed from her former residence, and they also noticed a moving company and called them to ask how she was paying for their services, because Megan had been begging for money online, and it was unclear if she was actually making money from donations. The moving company told Megan's haters that had called them that Megan had paid with a check, and these people told the company about Megan's past and that the check would likely bounce, as she had done this to moving companies in the past. This caused the moving company to stop and demand immediate payment from Megan, which she could not give, because as the community members guessed, Megan was planning to bounce a check as a form of payment. The moving company stalled for a few hours and eventually moved Megan's stuff into a storage unit, saying they'd give her things back once they received payment. As you can guess, she got more and more desperate and begged for even more money online.
I can't even believe the message I got from the moving company. We are not on any drama over here. People are calling me, asking to buy your storage once your deadline is up so that they can sell your items and pay off some of your debts. The people that are trying to buy my stuff after the deadline are sick bastards. It takes courage to want to buy my dad's ashes to sell them. I can't even believe the drama that has unfolded. I just wanted my dad's ashes back. I'm sorry I ever asked. I'm likely going to be done today, thanks to everyone who has contributed to my misery.
That's AI of Megan again, and this became her next saga. She claimed the moving company had moved her dad's ashes and was now holding them in the storage unit, along with the rest of her belongings, refusing to give them back until her debt was paid. Her pleas became more and more desperate, and the social media mob would reply to her tweets, sometimes in a very mean way. And I have to be honest, this is where things became really uncomfortable for me, at the time a peripheral member of the group. The group had been made private. We were not holding Twitter spaces. It seemed to be no longer about raising awareness, but in my opinion was getting close to harassment and bullying. And this was particularly because Megan constantly claimed that she was being bullied and harassed in her social media posts. She would even claim to be harassed outside of the grocery store and approached in public. I was kind of left wondering, what was she supposed to do? She had no money, no job, no place to live, although people speculated she was staying with her mom. This is when I consulted a pastor who told me that the group and raising awareness, warning local businesses that she may scam them, when she was in fact scamming them, was loving our neighbors. And this is what really turned things for me and my friends following this story. We felt very strongly that we needed to emphasize preventing Megan from making more victims. And it turned out Megan was not only scamming that moving company. We learned she had also been scamming her yoni practitioner, Haribo, who I mentioned in the last episode. Haribo was a frequent subject of Megan's posts around this time and the lead up to her arrest, and she had flown him out to Indianapolis 1 or 2 times in the spring of 2023. She was also paying exorbitant amounts of money to continue talking to him. I'm talking thousands of dollars, and nobody knew where she was getting the money for this. She also filed a request with the court to leave to fly to New Jersey in order to visit a chronically ill relative. One of the conditions of her bail was that she was not allowed to leave the state of Indiana. However, the online community believes she actually visited Haribo, who lives in New Jersey, for a yoni session.
Spent the week off the grid, completely immersed in everything that was good for the soul. # Team Meg always leaves me humbled and grateful. Now to get back to Indy for the 500.
That's AI reading a post from Megan on May 27th, 2023, accompanied by a photo of her on the beach and a photo of cake, among a few other things. Shortly after this visit to New Jersey, Megan began to cryptically post about Haribo on her social media, implying that he had taken advantage of her or sexually assaulted her.
If you work with a professional and they claim they're trauma-informed, but then say after 6 months they're done, do not work with that person. Run like the wind. This should always be a collaboration and a discussion between a clinician and a client.
That's AI again. For a while, Haribo was in communication with a member of our community and told her that Megan was severely behind on her payments, shocker, and that he was worried she was going to falsely accuse him of sexual assault. This was all right around the time of Haribo's wedding to his now wife, who I believe may have had some sort of interaction with Megan as well. So that's the second wedding this summer that Megan kind of ruined with her antics. Eventually, Megan sort of dropped her claim against Haribo.
While I feel Harry wronged me, I know I wronged him too. I've come to terms with that. So I've decided it's in both our best interest to part ways. I will not pursue any charges against him, and I will never contact him again.
That's the AI of Megan again. She sometimes refers to him as Harry instead of Haribo. There were more damning accusations that she posted on social media accusing him of sexual assault, and she filed a police report, but her other social media accusations were deleted. After Haribo, she apparently found a new yoni practitioner in California named Leo, although no one in the group has made contact with him in regards to Megan, and it doesn't seem like he ever made it to Indianapolis to provide the in-person services to her. It seems like she mostly paid him to text with him and do phone calls or therapy with him. Again, these are the sexual massage practitioners mentioned in the previous episode. These are not licensed therapists bound by HIPAA laws or something. And when she says she would never contact Haribo again, That is a lie. I know for a fact that she has called him repeatedly while she has been in jail. During the summer of 2023, she also posted screenshots that she had been accepted to Liberty University, a leading conservative university in Virginia, to pursue her PhD. So for a while, she claimed to be moving to the East Coast to pursue that. Later on, with the online begging, she would also sometimes claim that she would give the money she borrowed back plus exorbitant amounts of interest once her student loans came through. Like, she would request $1,000, but say she'd give back $3,000. So your run-of-the-mill Nigerian prince type scam. And honestly, the online community could not look away. There was a new story, a new tweet, a new Indianapolis area sighting, or a new social media message seemingly every day from May to August of 2023. Again, had Megan just stayed off of social media, people probably would have left her alone. But because she kept posting and messaging people constantly, trying to scam new victims, people continued to reply to her social media posts, alerting the public about her fraudulent behavior. They continue posting when they saw her out in public, or when they saw her in her car when it was parked around town. My personal favorite was when she was parked outside of the courthouse in a handicap spot without a handicap sticker, when she was there for a court date for how she violated the terms of her OWI offense and was driving on a revoked license. As an aside, Megan is not handicapped, but she frequently cited her being handicapped and unable to see as her need for driving and owning Teslas.
Hi all, I've struggled so much with driving and can only drive specific cars that help with my vision. I do have a handicap tag, but I've almost hit the building several times. I've hit several cars and I've hit my own garage. It's a miracle I can drive to begin with. Anyone know what my rights are for this?
That's AI of Megan reading one of her most infamous posts, which was posted to the Facebook group Cute Conservatives a few years ago. She posted a letter that she got from her apartment building reprimanding her for blocking the entrance to the apartment garage. Yes, the garage, the one that all of the residents need to be able to drive in and out of to get to school and to work and wherever else they needed to go. Megan, for some reason, thought it was acceptable for her to just park blocking that entrance because she had crashed her car so many times. And she asked this Facebook community what her rights were in terms of her disability. The comments on the thread are really nice and they handle her really respectfully, but they say things like, driving's not a right, and sometimes if you can't park, you just need to realize that driving isn't for you. There's something with her driving that I've never been able to get to the bottom of. It took her forever to get her license, like into her early 20s. And she had a permit for years prior to actually obtaining her license. Then she always makes the bogus claim that she can only drive if it's a Tesla, again, because of her disability. This should go without saying, but there's no law on the books in Indiana or any state that says you can drive if you are severely vision impaired if you drive a Tesla. If you're severely vision impaired, you aren't allowed to drive any car. Also, the Teslas Megan drove were not the self-driving kinds of Teslas. So there's a lot going on here. Megan's also claimed to have some sort of eye condition. Again, not one that would hinder her from getting her license. So posts like this were kind of common, but this brings up one of the group's best accomplishments when it comes to exposing her crimes and helping Megan's victims. The community of the people watching Megan got to the bottom of the Tesla saga. As the Twitter account formerly known as Indiana Delvey pointed out, Megan apparently had 4 separate Teslas in the years preceding her arrest, maybe even 5. No one could figure out how she could afford them because, again, people knew she didn't have a real job. The group began digging into the Tesla saga to try to figure out how she had them because it was clear something was off there. A member of the community who works in insurance looked up Megan's driving record, which we discussed in a previous episode, and found that she was likely uninsured. He passed the information along to the admins of the Facebook group, as they were digging into the Tesla story. One of the members of the admin chat, a smaller, more exclusive group of people who were all seeming to investigate Megan's antics.
So because of her DUI, she had to share her registration and car insurance information with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles for Indiana. So I thought, well, I've got a little bit of downtime. I'm, uploading some stuff. I'm, I've got my lunch here. Why don't I just take my lunch hour and see if I can get down to the bottom of this really quick. So, we knew that she had crashed a couple of cars, but she was still driving the white Tesla. And we knew that the previous Tesla she had was the blue one. And when I went and looked at the registration for the car, I believe it said it was the blue Tesla, which I thought was very interesting because Megan didn't really strike me as somebody who wrapped her car for some reason. And she was constantly driving around with dents and wing mirrors hanging off. And I'm like, there's no way that she's going to be that, concerned about the paintwork to wrap her car. So the first thing was, we discovered that that the insurance information, the registration information that she provided to the court was falsified. It was very clearly edited, and it also wasn't for the current vehicle. Then I went and looked at a different document that showed the lien holder for the vehicle, which the thing was about that was that the lien holder was a person. The lien holder wasn't a bank and it wasn't a dealership. And I had just bought a car around that time. And so I knew what I needed to have been looking for, if that makes sense. So I thought, okay, well, if it's this, if it's a person, then what is she doing with this person's car? So I went on Facebook and searched him and I found his profile, and it's him, and his profile photo is the same blue Tesla photo that Megan had tweeted when she said she was driving to Utah to pick the car up. So I was like, okay, I think we found our guy here. But here's the problem. If you send a message to somebody on Facebook that you have no connections with, it's going to go to spam. So I thought, okay, if this person is a business owner, then he probably is going to have a website, or he's probably going to have a LinkedIn. So I found him on LinkedIn, and I reactivated the LinkedIn Premium just to shoot him a message. But I shot him a message and I just said something along the lines of, hey, we don't know each other, but I think we have a mutual connection. Does the name Megan Stoner ring a bell? He messages me back and says, yes, I've actually just recently hired a lawyer regarding the situation, and was very clearly trying to, be very standoffish. And so I said, great. And from there, I sent him my own Twitter thread, and I just said, hey, here's my story. I am just trying to get down to the bottom of this mystery. And from there, he's just said, here's everything I know.
Up to this point, the Facebook group had already found more of Megan's victims from the rental scam and found other financial fraud schemes Megan had run that had yet to be uncovered publicly, like the situation with Edward Ma. But this story, where Alex found Steven, the guy who had leased the Teslas to Megan, and later we found out people he thought were Megan's friends, was probably the biggest accomplishment of the group. The legal situation is ongoing, and a lot of charges have been pressed against Megan since she has been in jail.
He said she totaled the blue Tesla. I'm still waiting on insurance settlement for that, and that's what I'm, trying to shoot for. And so I thought, okay, well, that doesn't explain, the white Tesla, but that explains what's going on with the blue Tesla. And she had told the blue Tesla owner that she had hit a deer. She wrapped this damn thing around a tree. There was no deer involved. And he then makes a comment. He says, I am a bit concerned, though, because her best friend leased another one of my cars, and I've been having a hard time getting a hold of her. Alan, oh, here we go. Okay, so I sent him the VIN number I know, and I said, is this the VIN number for the white Tesla? And he said, no, that's for the blue Tesla. So that also just doubled down on the point that she had provided falsified documents to the court. Then we went back. She had just been pulled over for some driving infraction and was charged for, well, she'd been given a ticket for driving with a suspended license, and I think it was speeding. So there was information on that ticket that I was able to pull because somebody did a FOIA request. And I said, is this the Tesla that you leased to the friend? And he said, that's the one. And I sent him the ticket information. I was like, this is in Megan's possession. Here's some photos of her driving her car. Here's, the ticket that she received while driving the car. So that then opened up the can of worms that she is stealing people's identities to make financial gains. So the owner said, thank you so much for, helping me with this. I have used the Tesla app to disable the vehicle, and I am flying out tonight to go pick it up and drive it back. So the Tesla was in a movie theater parking lot. And I would just like to think that Megan was there, doing the double feature of or was it Barbieheimer? Is that what we called it? Where she was there watching Barbie and Oppenheimer back to back. She came out to her car and she couldn't use it because it was disabled. That gets me.
So basically, Alex was able to find that Megan had stolen her former roommate's identity in order to steal the white Tesla, just by digging through a few court documents. As an aside, the story of how Megan stole her roommate's identity to obtain another Tesla is kind of funny and typical of Megan. After Megan totaled the blue Tesla, apparently she tried to lease another one from Steven, to which he said no. Then she used, you guessed it, a Google number to impersonate her former roommate. I guess she had her social security number as well from applying to live with this former roommate. So Megan, impersonating her former roommate, said that she could not fly out to pick up the car in Utah herself because she had suffered a miscarriage, and after the traumatic miscarriage, her husband committed suicide. So she had to send a friend in her place to pick up the vehicle. Again, this is one of those over-the-top stories Megan is known for. It's so tragic it feels like something is off, but a polite stranger would not dare question it. So Megan either picked up the car in Utah or had someone else pick it up for her. It made its way to Indiana, and that's the car Megan had for the last few months before she was arrested for the rental fraud scheme. And if this feels wrong and gossipy to you, as it did for me at points throughout the summer, I want you to think about how Alex put this.
And I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that case. But, I think that kind of goes back to why I just wanted to be involved in the first place. I wanted to help people. If I was going to be in this position, I wanted to help. And it was nice to know that, I was able to assist a small business owner, be able to not be continuously harmed by Megan and her nonsense. It wasn't hard. I think it was hard after the fact, reflecting on the fact because, I am a human being with empathy. And so I'm thinking damn, this guy is probably never going to see any kind of financial reconciliation from what he experienced with Megan. And I am sure that poor white Tesla has been beat to hell. And so I'm sure he's probably lost even more money trying to get that car, to be repaired again, to be leased. But at the time, it was actually really easy because I realized that he was still being hurt and I had the information to stop it.
Of the social media posting was admittedly a lot, and I do have empathy for Megan after she went through all of that. On the flip side, she kept scamming people. And as a community, it's cool that we could put a stop to that. And Alex deserves a ton of credit for the work she did on this case. And one more thing I want to point out here. I know there's a lot of mentions of suicide in this episode, especially in that last one, where, again, just the whirlwind Megan story. If you are struggling, please call 988 if you're located in the US to get help. If you feel I'm handling these claims somewhat flippantly, it's taken me listening back to this episode and editing to realize how desensitized I have become to claims of potential suicide attempts when it comes to the Megan story. However, I realize it is probably jarring for some, and again, if you're listening to this and struggling, there are a ton of resources to help you. Please do not hesitate to reach out. While I've hit a lot of big points with the Megan story, I've left a lot out. We went through a lot over these few weeks last summer, in the summer of 2023. Megan constantly messaged people for money to help her with bail. I'm talking constantly. And she would trauma dump on people that she seemingly didn't know.
As things started to kind of unfold in the group, I sent her a message and I said, "Hey, Megan, I don't know if you remember me, but you came and got a baby gate from me one time for your dog." I was like, "I see all these people talking about you on Facebook." I was like, I can't imagine how hard that is. And she's like, "I'm not talking over messages. Can you do like a FaceTime call with me?" And I was like, I have kids at home. I work from home. I'm working right now. I'm not going to be able to take a call. And then she just starts unloading all of these things on me about Haribo and all of these people. And I have no idea who these people are, Amanda. I wasn't like that engrossed yet. And she's telling me details about her life. And I'm like, who's Haribo? And then she just keeps going and going and going. And at the end, I was like, well, if there's any advice I can give you, it's that maybe you should stop scamming people and being a disgusting human being.
That's Alyssa. You met her earlier in the series. Megan acted kind of bizarre after picking up a baby gate from Alyssa after meeting her in a Buy Nothing Facebook group. And years later, Alyssa got enveloped in the Megan saga after realizing Megan was the same girl from a few years prior. Megan was also constantly writing letters to the court requesting her trial be delayed. Every time one of these letters would be published, the group would talk about how bizarre it was. She'd also consult with certain community members from time to time, like the notorious anonymous account Greg's Mustache, which had been trolling Megan for years. But Megan seemed to see this account, and she doesn't know who the owner of it is, by the way, as some sort of friend or mentor. As with the Zoom calls, Megan would often admit her wrongdoings to these new friends she made online, who, I cannot emphasize enough, Megan knew were in the groups dedicating to expose her scams. Like, there's one message she sent to the Mustache after he listed what the group had found about her identity theft and fraud from stealing the Teslas.
Yes, I did everything listed above. I don't want to rehash it. What do you think the best way to move forward with Steven is? Should I apologize?
So not only did the Mustache post that message from Megan to Twitter for everyone to see, but that message was sent directly to Steven, the guy Megan had scammed from the Teslas, and will presumably be used as evidence in court against her. This is one of these cases where Megan is really smart. Like, she got away with scamming that guy for years, apparently, for very expensive cars. But then she's also really stupid, admitting she did everything in a social media message to somebody that she didn't know and that she knew would have been screenshotted. Mustache was never soft or nice with Megan, at least in any message the account had published. It has always been firm with Megan. She had to have known what would have come of that, but she did it anyways. Around the end of July, Megan had violated her bail agreement so much that her bail was revoked, and she began running from the police, staying in hotels and Airbnbs so that the police couldn't find her at her mom's residence. She claimed this was at her lawyer's direction, but Megan had gone through multiple lawyers at this point as well, and she was paying them with bounced checks, which is presumably why she would have to find another one. It was clear Megan was just running because she didn't want to go to jail. At least that's what the people in the community thought. Around the beginning of August, after Megan had been running from the police for a few weeks, we found out about the worst crime of all of them that Megan had committed while out on bail. And that's what we'll get into next week. Until then, I'm Amanda. This is Don't Waste This Effing Podcast, the story of Megan Stoner.